Hey, it's Khalil with the Cashflow Contractor. Thanks for listening and tuning in. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, now's a great time to do it. If you are interested in building your construction business to be profitable and to run without you so you can have less stress, more time, and more money, we want to send you more content that can help you do that. I talk to contractors all the time who listen while they're driving from job site to job site, while they're taking care of stuff in the office or at home. And it's a great podcast for them because it gives them actual ideas and strategies they can use inside their business in a conversational format with two goobers like me and Martin. So if you're interested in that, you want more strategies to help you grow and improve your business, subscribe now. Now, let's get into the show. What's something that's actually going to make a difference in your business?
If you had a function chart and you had bullet points for each function, you would be in the top 3% of all businesses in the world for organization. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And the reality is you don't have to use your own brain power to do all of it. That's a great use for AI.
That's a brilliant idea.
I think there's a lot of things that aren't automated right now that should be automated.
What is a simple thing they can do to get introduced to AI and kind of go, oh, that was cool?
Today's episode is sponsored by OpenPhone. It's the perfect business phone system for contractors that you can manage just from your cell phone. If you're interested in hearing more about OpenPhone, check out the show notes to get an offer directly from them. The link is right here, and you'll find it down the show notes. Thanks for checking out today's episode, brought to you by OpenPhone.
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cashflow Contractor.
Mark, we talked about your 50th reunion. You were just telling me a story. I said, stop, let's record it. What's the story?
I'm not sure it's that good, but anyway, I was at my, we can always cut it off, right? That made me think of an incident from 20 years ago. Never mind. But
So I think I need to hear the incident from 20 years ago.
oh, no, there was a lady went to prison because she got mad at her husband. And then what prompted me to remember that was the phrase, cut it off. Now, you can join that together or whatever you want. She went to prison.
Oh, no.
Anyway, that's what you get for having a long memory, right? So, no, anyway, I went to my college 50-year reunion and I visited a class. Professor wanted me to come up, esteemed alum, say a few words. And I got a bunch of kids there, 19, 20 years old, looking at me with their laptops, wanting to take notes. Not of me, but anyway, yeah. And I said, hey, when I was 50 years ago, I was sitting in a classroom like this. So we didn't have laptops. Matter of fact, we didn't have copiers, which we didn't. Didn't have, you made copies
typewriters, right?
You had typewriters, you had carbon paper, you had NCR paper, you had thermofax, you had mimeograph, offset printing, but no copiers. So, big deal, technology. And anyway, I said, and here's where we are today. And my plan was to open up chat and say, hey, chat, GPT, and say, hey, I'm a 50-year alum standing in front of a class of people 50 years my junior. What could I possibly say that would interest them? Because I'd tried it, and Jap came up with some, talk about technology, talk about how, all these things that have changed. But it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work in the classroom. Yeah, so.
Oh, because they don't allow it?
No, it just,
okay.
I poor reception. It was in Nebraska, and that's, I don't know what's there. They're not AT&T, and you get really bad. Anyway, it didn't work. So
gotcha.
It's like when you're in a discussion with somebody and it ends and you walk out and you say, man, now I know what I should have said. It's like, that would have been really cool if it had worked. Which, by the way, just because it's interesting to me, but that idea is called l'esprit de l'escalier. You speak French.
L'esprit de l'escalier?
Yes. The spirit of
like
the
steps.
Stairs.
Of the steps.
Yes.
The stairs. Okay.
Yes. And that's what they call it. What it stands for is you are in a party and you think about the clever retort when you're on the stairs leaving.
Oh.
In France, that's what that idea of, man, I know what I should have said.
Yeah.
L'esprit de l'escalier.
That's good. I do have a reality check for you. They had their laptops open not to take notes, but because they were doing something completely different.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I had no illusions.
Okay.
And I sat at the back of the class, and I could see what everybody was doing, and most of them were taking
Okay.
notes and downloading slides, from professors using slides, and they're just
You know what
somehow downloading them.
what you probably would have been valuable, what I always admire about getting to listen to you, and I think it's a dying thing. A lot of people your age, like my father-in-law, were big on Brian Tracy, Zig
Yeah.
Ziglar,
Oh man,
and like what?
those guys predated us.
Sure,
Brian
I
Tracy and
understand, but you knew
Carson
who
Peter.
he was, is what I'm
Oh
saying.
yeah,
Like
but
you
you
like
don't
listened
think
to him
people do
maybe.
now?
Well, that's what I'm saying. None of the I'm telling you, all the people in college are not listening to Brian Tracy, to uh who's the other big one? Who's before Brian Tracy? We've referenced him a ton in the past. I can picture his face. He's the one that was
Oh,
with Tony Robbins and, taught him everything.
yeah. And he's the guy who said, if the prize is apparent, the price is
Yes,
easy. And I can't remember his name.
we'll get
That's
it
what happens.
eventually.
That's also
Anyways,
what happens when you hit my age.
if you would have talked about that stuff, changing your reality like that, they would have eaten that up.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say, you were mentioning AI and using ChatGPT. I think I did a pretty cool experiment this week that I thought you'd find interesting. So, um, we're helping company hire a service coordinator, and we wanted to come up with some trial tasks for the uh, job application. So someone applies, we screen them, then we send them some trial tasks to make sure they're qualified and they're capable. And one of the trial tasks was a bad service call that they get to listen to, and then they have to record a video of themselves talking about the service call they listened to and why it was bad, and give all the different reasons. But this company that we're working with does not record any phone calls. And in fact, they're actually kind of opening up this service department. They've been doing service work, but it hasn't really been very structured, and they're trying to make it more of a structured department. And so we had to, come up with a fake bad service call. And yes, I could have acted it out with maybe my assistant or someone on my team, or even them. Could have started implementing a phone system that does record calls and let them do a
Right.
bad service call with a real customer. But we used AI, and I didn't, I was looking for what tools are out there, and there's two really cool ones that I want to talk about. One is uh, LLM Notebook, or Notebook LLM, whatever it is, by Google. But essentially, you just give it any topic and it turns it into a podcast between a girl and a guy. And they talk just like you and I are talking right now, very like casual, like,
Wow.
oh, that's cool. And so that didn't work for this because it was a podcast format of a bad service call. And it actually started saying, can you believe this service call? Like, this is really bad. And they're like, they're reading the
talking about
script a little bit off, like, why would you say that? Like, that's really, so it was pretty funny. But I'll come back to that one. What I ended up using was 11 Labs, which is a really cool tool where essentially you can do voiceovers. So if you want voiceover for your video, you can put any text. It'll give you, thousands of voices that you can
and
choose
read it
from.
for you.
And there's
Ooh,
yeah. So you can do like
will that do
children's
an
books.
audio book?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Will it
It will.
write an audio book?
It won't write. It will read the audiobook. It won't write it.
But will it transcribe it and put it?
No,
No,
if you
no. Will it
here's
read?
yes.
Okay,
Here's, if you put in the profit problem and just pasted all the text into it, or put the
which
PDF in there,
I have.
it will read the entire thing. Yes, and you
Well,
can
will
use
it
it as an
put it in a
audiobook.
form that I could post it on Amazon as an Audible
Correct. You
audio
could.
book?
Yes,
Ooh,
100%.
because people ask me for that all the time, and my publisher said, no, it's not worth your time and effort and cost to
Yes, you could
record it.
absolutely do it for probably like a couple $100. You could have it done.
Wow,
And
wow.
the other thing is, you could actually do your voice if you wanted to. Like, let's just say that we have your voice on the Cashflow Contractor, so we could just upload a bunch of audio from our episodes and then put it on, and then it would read it out. So anyways, that it does the voiceovers, but you can also do I could put 15 different voices having a conversation if I wanted to and have it all play out. But what we did was we put the script of a bad service call into 11 Labs, and we made it. I'll put a link to it for people to listen to, and in the show notes if you want to check it out. It's not like brilliant, like you can tell it's AI, but it sounds like real people. It's just that the cadence is a little off. I could have adjusted cadence and tone and all that kind of stuff. We didn't need it to be that challenge or like that perfect. So
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn. Yes.
Yeah. So now you can tell I haven't heard a thing you said because my mind's going, who the hell was? No, I have heard. Jim Rohn. Yeah. I couldn't remember that.
Yeah. Great. I love listening to him on YouTube, but like no one listens to him in the younger generation. And I think there's a lot of value there.
Well, finish that point, but I do want to talk about listening to or reading.
So going back, there's a couple of different use cases that I think about for this. Obviously, training purposes are really great, but you can use it for marketing in terms of like you can add 11 Labs to your website for people to be able to read your blogs or whatever it is. You can also download the app, which I believe might be free, and it can read all of your emails for you. It can read anything that's on your phone. So let's say you have a ebook or a PDF that you wanted to read at some point, but you haven't gotten to it. Let's say that you have a bunch of emails in your inbox. You can download on your phone. You can have all of your emails on there and have it read it out loud to you. So if you're, driving, you can just have it read text to you as long as you want. Obviously, you have the use case of your audiobook. I think it's a really interesting tool, and it's crazy to think about where things are going with that. And I will say the voices sound very, very real, right? So while in my use case, it wasn't great because I was having two people talk to each other and the cadence wasn't right. If you're having just one person talk, it sounds like phenomenal. It sounds like a real person, 100%.
And you can go in there and maybe make a pause after a strong point.
Oh yeah.
You can
do it.
So you can make it sound a little more.
Hey, I want it to go up, or I want it to end down, or what. You can do whatever you want.
Want it to sound like a question.
It just makes it reality that very soon, and I know that there's even capabilities right now, but very, very soon, you don't have to answer the phone. No one has. You can have AI answer the phone and then redirect to a real person when necessary. It's definitely coming, and there's even functionality of some of those things right now. So really, really interesting to think about. Quick ad break to tell you about Growth Kits. This is actually my company, and you may have seen it around, but I started Growth Kits because I kept seeing contractors struggle with the same problems over and over again. They were trying to be better organized inside of their business, but kept drowning in the day-to-day operations. So whether you need a better CRM, a hiring process that actually works, or you just want to make sense of the tech stack inside of your business, we have systems that are built specifically for contractors. You can either grab our DIY guides and implement these systems yourself, or you can hire us to work with you on it and implement it for you. No massive consulting fees, no year-long commitments or monthly retainers. Just pick what you need right now and let's get it done together. Head over to growth-kits.com to see how we can help you construct your success one system at a time. That's growth-kits.com, or just click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show. One of the things I want to go back to about the Notebook LLM, which is where it creates like a podcast recording of the guy and the girl talking. It's really valuable for getting difficult information to digest. So like take your book, for example. Great book, very technical and a little bit challenging to comprehend if you don't like have good visuals or a really good explanation of it. We've explained it on this podcast, but if you upload that into the Notebook LLM and then it turns it into a podcast, it makes it engaging and easier to understand and follow, right? So if maybe there's something that you have that's, very technical, a safety manual that you need to read, to get through, you could just upload it and then listen to it. Something that I also did, so I journal not every single day, but multiple times a week. And I actually do it digitally, right? So I'm in Notion. I type out my journal. It just allows me to do it much faster because I can type a lot faster than I can write. So I took probably like 5 journal entries and I just uploaded them into the Notebook LLM. And my prompt was like to have a conversation about Khalil, who's the one journaling, and try to be uplifting and encouraging and motivational towards Khalil. So then, we all have head trash. I'm always hard on myself. I'm not doing well, whatever it is. I'm listening to this podcast and they're talking about like, wow, he sounds like a really thoughtful person. And like, it's just like encouraging me. So it's just inflating my ego a little bit. But I actually thought it was really good. I thought it was a good like exercise of listening to, what someone might say about you. So I thought you'd find that interesting.
I will, and I want to pursue that. There are 2 things come to my mind, may not be directly useful for contractors today.
Yeah.
But this idea that, well, let me jump back and do a geezer story. I bought an Apple IIe in probably 1980 or whenever they came out. That was the first PC. Well, it wasn't a PC, but first desktop you could bring home.
Sure.
Had 2 5-inch discs. One ran a program, the other had the data. And I learned to program BASIC, which is, I don't even know if it's still around, but it's real simple, kind of like using Excel. Mm-hmm. And after about a week, I had no clue what to do with the thing. They said, oh, you can store your names, make it a address book. You can keep recipes in there. You can do an amortization schedule. Anyway, it's kind of like, well, yeah, okay. And let me finish that real quick. I took it back because it was like a couple $1,000 or something. It was a lot of money. And I didn't have, it was just sitting there. Within 2 years, I could not I ran grain elevators at the time. I could not do any business without a computer, not just the financials, but the scale, everything we did required computers. Chat, here's my point, is the same thing. AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, what the hell's that mean, right? And where we've gone, I think I told my story, if we left it in, about how I was going to use it at this college thing. You told me about something I'm going to incorporate where I can do my Zoom meetings on Google Meet, so they're not Zoom, record or transcribe the conversation, put the conversation in Drive, and then have chat go condense, categorize according to those notes so that I have basically an outline and I don't have to sit there and do it. I go, yeah, whoa, that's a brilliant idea. And now you're coming up with, have a podcast reading your, and and the last one, I was talking to my son last night and he's pretty tech savvy and he uses everything. And I said, well, how's school going for my 10-year-old granddaughter? He goes, oh, the school's great. It's the math problems. I go, what about it? He goes, well, I have to explain these unbelievable word problems. And I said, well, you can just figure them out. He goes, no, you can just put them in chat. And I said, yeah, you got to enter it in chat. He goes, no, you take a picture of the problem in the book and put it in chat and it'll figure it out for you. However, it's got some kind of new math that chat can't give him the right answer. So we haven't figured it out, but just going, holy cow, man.
It changes so much. I think the reality is AI is not going to eliminate jobs. Like AI is not taking anybody's job, especially in construction for that matter. But AI, what is going to take your job is the person who uses AI.
Yeah.
The person who uses AI is the one who's going to take your job eventually. If you don't use AI in some capacity, there's so many use cases.
Well, most
really cool
people
tools out there.
They need a guy like Khalil. I've gotten tips from other stuff, but I guess there are other ways to get it. I mean,
there's so many great YouTube videos out there. Like that's all I'm doing. I mean, there's a little bit of me playing around, but I hear about something maybe on Twitter and then I go and I look it up on YouTube, and in 20 minutes I can have a new use case for AI. And there's tools that make it as easy as you just have to sign in and connect your email. And then all of a sudden now AI is joining every single call that you're on and recording it, transcribing it, sending emails, creating tasks, whatever it is. So it's a really valuable thing. I wanted to talk about the podcast thing again. It's not just valuable for the complex information. It's also you have something that you want to send to your employees, and it's a bunch of text that they're probably not going to read, especially guys out in the field. Turn it into a podcast. Hey, you need to listen to this. I feel like that's a great use case for this.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
instead of spending maybe an hour reading something, they can turn it into a 20-minute podcast that's somewhat engaging. And then you send it out to hey, you got to listen to this, right? And then they can drive and listen to it while they're on the road, right? So just an interesting thing to think about.
Well, that's, I had a new client prospect in yesterday, real small company. And one of the questions I asked are you a reader? Nope. Are you a listener? Audiobooks? Nope. Now that may not preclude that they do watch YouTube. There's something still about books and articles that follow a logical sequence. They introduce an issue, show what the problem is, show what the difficulties are in changing it, show the value of changing it, and wrapping it up. Well done. But that's difficult for something to me, like me, because if I hear about something, I get a book, period. I just get a book and read it.
And really what's required for that, I think, is a dedicated time of being still and being quiet. And that's what's hard today, is that everyone's on their phone, everyone's got the TV on, everyone's preoccupied. And that's the value of a book, is that you can't be on your phone watching TV, reading the book. I mean, maybe you can, not
You're not going to get anything out of it.
You're not going to get anything, but that dedicated quiet time, like if anyone I know that's listening to an audiobook, I would say primarily they're driving, but potentially they're working out, or they're doing yard work, folding laundry, doing dishes.
Right.
They're always multitasking, and you can't multitask while reading a book. And there's just no replacement for that.
Right.
You're always going to get more with a book and then a pen to highlight. And so
well, I kind of bemoan I read books because I'm in the habit of it. That's what I did. It's what I've always done. I get it.
Yeah.
You never start, not you, but one never started. They're not going to. It's easier other ways. But it kind of makes you think, it's the demise of books. I don't remember, 770 million, something like that. But it was a bunch. The most ever physical books printed and shipped last year. Ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They are not going down. They're going up.
Do you know why, in my opinion?
Why?
A lot of the books are being being written by AI. People are just using AI to write a book and then put it on Amazon.
But somebody's got to buy it. And I think that's more and more true. I've got a client who's writing a book using AI, happens to be real smart. He's a CEO of a pretty good sized company. And he sent it to me, okay. Matter of fact, Mark Twain said, if you want an author to like you, tell him you read his book. If you want him to love you, offer to read a manuscript. Because you're craving feedback, right? Well, anyway, he sent it to me. And so I'm reading it kind of and then I got into it. It's pretty good. It's a good book. I'm sure there are a lot of not good books.
If you know how to use AI, and then you can get 80% there with AI, and then really add your tone and voice and all that stuff, you can write some pretty good stuff. But it still requires work. It's just that you can.
You're way ahead.
The best analogy is: are you digging the hole with a shovel, or are you digging it with an excavator? Right.
There you go.
That's what AI is. You still have to be skilled in using the excavator. You need to know where to dig and how deep and what to avoid and all those kinds of things. And then you have to operate the excavator properly, but you're going to be able to do a lot faster.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Please take a moment and subscribe to our podcast. If you're getting value from what we're talking about here on the Cashflow Contractor, please do us a favor and just click subscribe. If you're on YouTube, click subscribe. Apple Podcasts, hit subscribe. Spotify, hit subscribe. And if you want our weekly newsletter straight to your inbox every single week, click subscribe down in the show notes. Really, really easy. I know that you're probably listening while you're driving from job site to job site, or you're working on something in the office or at home, or you're mowing the lawn, but just take a second and subscribe for us. It would mean the world to us. We know that you're trying to build a profitable construction business that operates without you. We're trying to build a profitable podcast that operates with us, and you're a huge
part of that. So please subscribe. We'd love to help you even more and help other contractors find our content as well. We all do better when we share what works. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to the episode.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot because we didn't talk about this, but we got contractors driving around right now listening to us. What is a simple thing they can do to get introduced to AI and kind of go, oh, that was cool? And not that they're scared of it, but I mean, just like me, I just tried it because you said so. And then I found another guy was telling me about the verbal, whatever you call it. Anyway, I've got the chat for that, and I do almost everything by voice, and I just use it all the time.
Yeah.
So what's something that could get somebody just kind of started?
Well, I think most people have looked at ChatGPT. Maybe they haven't like used it a ton, but they've seen it, whether someone else has done it or they've done it, they've watched a video on it, whatever. So I don't know that the starting point necessarily is just going to ChatGPT. What's something that's actually going to make a difference in your business? I think there's a lot of things that aren't automated right now that should be automated in a lot of businesses. And I think that getting into a tool like make.com, MAKE, or Zapier, ZAPIER.com, and then using AI in that context is really valuable. So a simple thing that you could do is get into Make or Zapier, whichever one you want to use. Maybe you already have an account with Zapier. It's a lot more popular. Connect your email to it. And anytime you you can make a Zap. It's really easy. You just kind of follow the steps. Okay, connect your email account. What's the trigger? And then what's the action? The trigger is that whenever I send an email, I want it to also send a copy to ChatGPT. And then I want ChatGPT to put I want it to evaluate how I write emails. And I want it to identify the knowledge, the tone, the personality, the answer, and I want it to put it into a Google Doc, into the same Google Doc, right? So that's the action. Trigger, I send an email. You're not doing anything differently than you already do, whether it's from your phone, from your personal inbox. But whenever I send it, I want it to also send a copy to chat, and then I want what chat's response to go into this specific Google Doc and just keep going. If you do that, let's say you do that for 3 months, right?
Okay.
Every email you respond to.
Let me see if I'm on the same page.
Okay.
Or what we're doing is trying to capture your voice so that you can put that in and chat can read it and answer it in that tone.
So essentially, yes, not only that, what it's going to do is, one, it's going to create a knowledge base. Hey, create a knowledge base of how, like FAQs, for example. Will you create a knowledge base of FAQs from how I respond to emails? Please distinguish the knowledge base between internal emails and external emails, right? So whether I'm sending it to my team, that's FAQs for our team to do training, and then FAQs for outward facing. So that can help with sales, customer service, whatever it is, right? Vendor management. And so you've set that up. You haven't changed anything about how you work, right? You're already communicating via email, but now it's capturing all that in a knowledge base. The next thing is it has your tone. So then you have that all in this Google Doc. You take that information, you put it into the AI again, say, hey, from this PDF that I give you, I want you to characterize vocabulary, sentence structure, all that kind of stuff. And now you have an AI that will generate emails based on like, hey, you basically can put a question from your email, put it into chat. It'll give you how you should respond.
Okay. I love this. This is answering kind of a big question for me. That Google Doc database or knowledge base can just be huge, right?
Yeah. Depending on how you're,
I mean, you can just keep
how often you're using your email. If you send 10 emails a day and you did that for 3 months, yes, it'll be very big.
But that's okay. You're not limited somewhere.
No.
Okay. Now, this is something I tried before. we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but other people surely have this question. If I want Google to, I'm not Google, but chat to be a chat on my database, right? On this knowledge that I'm giving it, I have to, at the current time, put that into chat every session, and then it works on it. It doesn't, and I get out, it doesn't remember it.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have it work on this database or this knowledge base that you've built up, you have to load it in order for chat to work on it, right?
Right.
You're nodding. Okay. So how do you do that? Can you automate that?
Okay. Are you asking about with what I just said?
Yeah. Yeah. You've got this huge database and later on you're going to have it, I'm presuming, you're going to have that chat write the email responses, and people won't be able to tell it wasn't from me. But in order to do that, chat has to have access to this big document, which gets kicked out every time you end a chat session.
So essentially, at the start, I would just do what I said. Okay. Once you have, let's call it 3 months worth of emails, right? Then from there, you can use the document you have to then upload back into ChatGPT to get the value. Hey, I want to create the internal knowledge base. I want to create the external knowledge base. I want to create an email generator. You can do that with the document that you have. You can do this by uploading all of your old emails. That's another way to do this. It just takes a little bit more time, and it's not going to be ongoing, right? So the ongoing aspect is more real time and what's currently happening. Then once you have that, you can even have it to where, hey, I get an email from in my inbox in Gmail from any of these email addresses, right? So let's just say for internal emails, right? So from your domain, create a draft response to that email using this ChatGPT chat and put a draft inside of my inbox, right? So now you open up your email, you're looking at a response or an email from your employee. You can have a response that you're reading as well, and then you can just click send, or you can edit
I love
it.
Now, my question is still, I get that email and I want to have it, I want to respond to it using chat. Chat has to have access to that huge Google Doc with all that information on it. Somehow I have to load that into chat, or can you automate that?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily. You could absolutely automate that. Hey, yes. The answer is yes.
Okay.
You can automate that.
Well, you're sounding like you may not have to do that, but how does it have access to all that information?
Well, you could automate that, but I think there's value in you manually going over, grabbing that Google Doc that has the 3 months worth of data from your email, uploading it into ChatGPT, seeing how it, what is the knowledge base that it generates, tweaking it a little bit. What is the tone that it says for your emails, trying the responses a little bit before automating it. So,
no doubt on that, but you can automate it.
You can automate it.
If you always had to go load it, it would make it more cumbersome.
Correct.
I'm all for learning how. Oh, that's brilliant. See, there you go. There's another.
Yeah.
And that's not even cutting edge, really, is it?
No, that's not cutting edge. There's people that are, hey, anytime we get an email, it turns it into a blog post that goes on, that it automatically publishes to our website, and it's live, right? Yeah. So now you're creating 10 articles a day based upon real customer service feedback that you're giving and answering the questions that are on there, right?
Wow.
So there's a lot of different things that you can do. That's just some of it. So yeah, using a tool like Make or Zapier is really, you can spend 5 hours a week and you would be completely blown away by the things that you're able to generate. Like completely blown away. Just 5 hours a week. And with that 5 hours a week, you can easily get back 5 hours by automating some different things. Like the things we're talking about now are kind of new, like, oh, well, I don't have a knowledge base, or I don't have blogs on my website. But there's things that you're currently doing that it can easily do for you.
Quick ad break. If you're like most contractors I talk to, you're probably drowning in day-to-day operations. I see it time and time again. You're wearing too many hats and there's no way off of the hamster wheel.
That's exactly why I put together a free guide. It's called 24 Things You Need to Hire the Perfect Assistant. Now, I put this guide together to help any small business owner delegate over 50% of their current workload and buy back 20 hours of their time. And you may think that's unrealistic, but the most successful contractors I know all have one thing in common: a full-time assistant who helps them run their business. And this guide walks you through everything you need to know about finding and training the perfect assistant, from creating clear expectations all the way to building out the right systems. It's not a fluffy PDF, it's really to the point, but it's still over 35 pages of actual practical steps that you can use right now. I've included templates, examples, and real processes that we use to help other contractors implement the right executive assistant. So the link for this guide is in the show notes. You can click it and download it. It'll be sent right to your email. Now, back to the episode.
Here's another great thing. Every contractor I know is delegating tasks some capacity. Maybe it's to an outsourced vendor, maybe it's to a subcontractor, maybe it's to someone on their team, maybe it's to someone in their family, right? They're delegating things all the time. You can use it to better delegate tasks. Usually when people are delegating tasks, they're not giving enough information about what's the purpose of this task, how does it play into the big picture, what are they, who are the decision makers that I can report to for this task, what are the resources I need to be able to complete this task, what does this task look like whenever it is completed, like what's a checklist to make sure I've done this, I've covered all the bases for this task. They're just saying, hey, I need you to go do that. And then they don't give them any further information, right? Well, you can just say, hey, ChatGPT, I want to delegate this task. Please delegate it more efficiently and more clearly to the employee. So you put it in, it gives you back all that information that I just said.
Right.
Well, you can create let's say you're using Slack to communicate in your workplace. You can then have a Slack channel that you delegate the task in. It sends it to ChatGPT automatically to do all that stuff and then sends the message to the employee immediately, right? So you send it to the chat and it's basically the same exact thing that you did, but now it's gone through, it's added context, it's added value, and you can even connect that chat to an existing knowledge base that you have, like all of your SOPs, and then it will give exact details of how to delegate it, right? So
let me jump back because I'm not sure about one thing, but you need Make or Zapier is the one that sets up that sequence of
it's the automation, it's the workflow of how all the automation works.
Without that, no funciona, right?
Yeah.
Well, it makes it easy.
Yeah.
Makes it clear. Okay.
So.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So. Obviously we've talked about AI quite a bit so far, and that's kind of dominated the conversation. I wanted to pivot a little bit because something came up this week and I thought it'd be valuable to talk about. We can do an episode, listeners, if you are interested in any of this stuff, maybe you have examples of AI and how you're using it, or maybe you have maybe a use case that you want us to walk through. We can do a live screen share for our YouTube audience of building it out, and we'll build it out for Martin. We'll do a real use case. So, but only if listeners want that, we'll do that. If they don't, maybe everyone listens while they're driving, like, I can't follow that. So we won't do it, but just let us know, send us an email, put a comment on YouTube, whatever it is. So shifting gears a little bit, I was talking to someone recently that is in desperate need to hire somebody, and they were thinking, man, I really got to get this role. And so immediately they started going into, I need to make sure that I'm set up properly for this role. I need to start building out SOPs for it. I need to start really building out the job description, all this kind of stuff. And I had to slow them down, essentially. I'll ask you this. What's the problem with starting with SOPs for trying to hire somebody, in your opinion? Or do you not think that's right?
Well, SOP being distinct from a job description in that it gives a whole bunch of detail. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah. If you have a history of that operation and the SOP is valid for that, I don't see the problem, and I'm anxious to hear what it might be. If you don't, I don't think that's the first thing that you have to worry about. You have to say, this will be a responsibility. Perhaps you can create it with that person. Very important.
So this
I don't
was
know if
this is
that's
for a new role that doesn't really. I
okay.
mean, obviously the functions are being accomplished, but there's not really a role around it, right? But even though the functions are being done currently, I don't think that you start with SOPs, right? I Going through the process of making SOP for the standard operating procedure, you're going to have, what is the purpose of this SOP? What are the things that you have to have access to? What are the to be able to complete the SOP? What are the references of other SOPs that maybe correlate to it? What are the step-by-step instructions written out? And then ideally, you do have a video version of yourself doing the SOP to its end state so that you can see the process and you can see the output. That can take a lot of effort. It can also not take that much effort depending on what the task is. But if you don't really have someone in this role full time, and you're still doing those things, but you don't have the dedicated role to it, we know that I'm a business owner. I'm wearing a lot of hats. I'm not dedicated to this function full time. Someone is going to be dedicated to it full time. They're going to do a better job at it than I am, hopefully, because it's their full responsibility, where this is like a partial thing on my plate, right? Ideally, I find someone that can make the process better, that can improve it, that can grow the function out to make it a much better, much better quality for our team, for our clients, for our vendors, et cetera. So why would I develop a poor SOP that's me partially giving my time to it, when someone who can be in that role for a month, 3 months, and then see, here's how we can make this better, then make the SOP for it? That's my opinion.
No, I agree with that. Historically, and we don't have to go really all the way back to org charts, but I start with an org chart.
That's exactly what I
Each,
told this person. That's
okay,
exactly
and
what I said.
each function in that org chart, the next step is bullet points. What are you doing? We're going to get the material. We're going to load the machine. We're going to execute whatever the program is that came across, and we're going to take it off and we're going to send it. Kind of like so somebody looks at that and goes, oh, that's what this job is.
Yeah.
I got to get the stuff and I got to machine it, run through the CNC.
And my point was actually, going back to your org chart, we've talked about this in the past, but I think it's worth clarifying. And I think it's even worth giving it a different name so that there's not confusion, because the definition of org chart can be varied, especially for how you and I see it versus what most people see it as. Most people on the org chart have titles, and then they have person's name.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's only one person for each title. I think what we're really talking about is what I've started calling a business function chart.
Perfect.
It has nothing to do with titles. It's how does your business operate? It's all the functions you do, and how is it not even hierarchical, but just separating it by area of the business, right?
Well, the hierarchy part is least. It's part of it the way I do it.
It's part of it, but it's not the most
important.
No,
I never put names in the boxes when we're creating it. And one reason is that you wind up organizing your company around some person that you have who's a great welder, a machine operator, and a receiving clerk. So you got a welder, receiving, machine operator box. No, you don't. That's 3 different things, right? But the step after that, after you get the functions like you're talking about, is what I say is bullet points. Just this is what this function, an overview. Go ahead.
So I agree, but a caveat again for me, I don't even think it's bullet points. So, back up. Let's explain the function just a little bit better. So let's say that you are doing dispatch as one of your functions, right? You've got to send out the crew, right? So under the dispatch, you would have the functions of calling the customer, scheduling the appointment, adding it to the CRM, assigning it to the field crew, having ensuring materials and equipment are on the truck, doing the job, right? So the actual installation, billing the customer, et cetera, right? So that would be a part of that dispatch function in some capacity. So we've basically just listed out functions.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily this person's the dispatcher. This is what they do. It's just, these are the things we have to do as a business to function, right?
That's what I call bullet points. Just
Okay. Okay. So
these are elements. And let me say this too, real quickly. And it may have changed because of so much software around. But historically, if you had an org chart, not an org chart, a function chart, right?
Yeah.
And you had bullet points for each function, you would be in the top 3% of all businesses in the world for organization. Because even though you might not have the instructions in what I think you're going to talk about further here, you at least know I'm hiring this guy and this guy or this gal, and they do these things.
Yep.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And the reality is you don't have to use your own brain power to do all of it. You could use your own brain power and you can get a lot of the way there. That's a great use for AI again. Hey, help me understand what I'm missing. And then it gives you more than a blank canvas. It gives you 80%, and then you can fill in the rest, right? You can use your mind critically to decipher what makes sense for your business, what doesn't, how you would tweak the language or the wording of it. And it will give you, all those functions. The next thing that I say is before SOPs, and I think you agree with this, it's checklists. It's not SOPs.
Yeah.
Hey, you're going to schedule the customer. What are the 5 things you need to know? You need to know what the address is. You need to know what time. You need to know what their cell phone is, like who's the person to contact if we have an issue getting into the gate, if we have an issue with, having to go in the backyard or whatever you have to do. And then do we have all the materials, right, for this job to be able to schedule it? And is the crew available to actually schedule this? Checklist, boom.
And if you got that checklist wrong, you realize you add an element or replace an element next month, but you've got it stored somewhere.
Well, and what's nice about that, clarity, the checklist is yes or no questions. That's a really important thing. If you start having more than yes or no, it's not a checklist. It's a survey, right? So yes or no questions.
Well, the other thing about checklists is not a step-by-step how to do it thing where 50 items. It is general. Matter of fact, we'll mention that book, Checklist Manifesto, because it describes it so well. And it's a short, simple book, and I'm sure it's available on audio, but kind of general. Do we have materials and supplies? Not do we have the granite? Do we have the wood? Do we have the gas can? And 3 guys sitting around at the truck looking around going, yeah, we do. All of you, that's 6 eyes rather than 2. Anyway.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So what's nice about the checklist versus the SOP, let's say you're hiring this new role. They have all of their functions. They have checklists for each function. You say, hey, as long as the checklists are accurate, I don't care how you get to the result, right? I had my process, but I'm going to let you figure out the best process for you. And maybe there's coaching involved there. There's conversations where you figure out what the best process is, but then you can find what is the best way to do those things with this new hire, give them some ownership in it. And that's whenever you're able to create SOPs, and they can create it rather than you, because they're the ones that are doing it every day. They're going to know the details. They're going to be more diligent about it. And it's important that they do those SOPs early on in the hiring process. I'm not saying the first week, but in the first 90 days, they should get started creating SOPs for their role, because it sets the expectation that you document your job. And then it allows them to, one, they leave, you can hire someone with SOPs that actually work, right? That are proven, not just you coming up with them out of thin air. But 2, if they want to be promoted, they're going to need to fill their role. So now they understand that role. They can train someone on it. They can manage that person with the effective SOPs and the checklists. And then they can be promoted to the next spot to be able to do the same thing, right? So I always think it starts with function, then checklist, rather than SOP and then hire. And then you don't really know where you're going, right? But anyways, that's something that came up this week that I wanted to make sure we went over.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and I agree with you 100%.
Quick ad break to tell you a little bit about OpenPhone. If you're a contractor that has a single cell phone, you're probably inundated with text messages and phone calls, oftentimes that you can't be responsive to or that you can't answer at all. So what's the solution? You can buy another office line with Verizon or AT&T, and you can have an iPhone that is passed around from employee to employee, depending on who's on call. But what if there's a better way? What if there's a way that you can have all your phone calls recorded to go back and listen to later, transcribed with summaries so that you can get a quick glance at what happened during the phone call? and even connect it to your CRM where all your other customer information is. OpenPhone is the perfect solution because it does just that. You're able to add all the users you need to for whoever needs to have access to the lines for your company phone. And then you can also find all of the information you need at a glance with a centralized location for all phone calls and text messages with your customers. Whether it's for marketing, for sales, or for service, OpenPhone is the perfect solution for you and your team. If you're interested, we have an offer down the show notes from OpenPhone. Please click the link down the show notes, or you can see it here on your screen to be able to find more information about OpenPhone. Thanks for listening. Back to the episode.
Okay. So I think going back to AI, I think that's where you start with some of this rather than just, you don't have a business function chart probably. Ideally, you have your business function chart and you review it fairly regularly because things change and things are missed. And what I think you can also do with the function chart that kind of ties back into your org chart, take a picture or initials of each person on your team. And if, we build out business function charts for people and we put them into a Google Slides. So then you just take the box of, KB and you put it next to the box on the chart, right? And then you can duplicate KB and put them all over
And
to
you
see
can
all the different
also
functions.
you can also delete it when they fire your butt.
Yeah.
Get that guy out of there.
But that allows you to see all the different areas that you're covering as an owner, that your assistant's covering, that this foreman's doing. And then that allows you to see capacity too. Holy cow, foreman's actually on, 25 different boxes here. It's probably better to get some of these things off of their plate,
Yeah.
right?
On that subject, one of the uses, pretty common uses of org charts or function charts is I'll be talking to an owner of a small business and they're overwhelmed and they say, I've got to get somebody to help me. And the thing that they were doing that day that is wearing them out, maybe they were delivering stuff. Now I got to hire a delivery guy. No, we go back to the function chart and we look at all the things and go, where do you really spend? This happened with Jeff. Where do you really spend your time that we could get the most bang for the buck of hiring? And it was not what we thought it, but by looking on the chart, we could say, oh, I do this, this, and this. I can hire one guy who can take all three of those functions off my plate. And it's a clarifying agent because if you're just doing it under duress, you're going to be thinking about the issue at hand that's, wiping you out right at this moment. And that's not always the thing that you need to act on first.
Well, and another thing to point out here about the difference in org chart and function chart is that titles mean nothing. You could be shop manager at this place, and then you go to the next company and you're shop manager, and you're doing a completely different job. It could be totally different. One, you're actually managing guys. One, you're just dealing with inventory and how clean the shop is. Like, I mean, I was just on a different podcast earlier this week, and they were talking about how it seems like every, person at a bank goes from bank teller to VP. There's their next, jump where they're VP of, loan officer, whatever. So titles don't mean anything.
Well,
Functions
they do in that context, but not for your point. Yeah, a lot of times they're given in lieu of wages, but that's not, your point is totally good.
Well, they're given in lieu of wages, in lieu of responsibilities, in lieu of experience. I mean, they just mean completely different things. And so rather than trying to find, like if you were going to go and try to hire someone, rather than thinking, hey, I need to hire this title, you should be thinking, I need to hire these functions.
Right.
Right. Completely. And then what the reality is also, if you're really trying to find someone on Indeed, for example, you shouldn't be posting a job ad for a title. You should be posting them for multiple titles that typically do those functions, right? So instead of, let's say you need someone to do dispatch. Well, you could use the term dispatcher. You could also use the term service coordinator. You could use the term operator, like phone operator. You could use the term scheduler. Like there's going to be a lot of different terms that people are searching for the same exact job because there's different titles for the same functions. So titles mean nothing. Functions mean everything. Focus on the functions. And then you can build out the title. You can build the role around what functions you need as long as they're within reason. That's how I would approach it. So I think this is hopefully valuable. We're kind of all over the place, but it's just a conversation. That was kind of the goal of today, is doing a little bit different and just talking. What?
Well, I have one other
Go ahead.
thing,
Yeah.
and we've really talked about this before, but it's coming up right now. As a matter of fact, I've received 2 phone calls and I know what they're about. This idea of keeping people around, I guess we've talked about it a lot, but it's so. We're going to have a guest on in the next month or so who's really big into this. But 2 things: how do you measure people? There are objective measurements like you got to turn out 45 widgets a day. That's your job. Or your attitude. You got to fit in. Guy does 50 a day, but everybody hates him and he causes trouble and all this. So 1, how do you evaluate people? Okay. Then 2, how do you value objectively is pretty easy because everybody can count. Subjectively is not so easy. Should we evaluate people? That's literally a question that's out there. Should we evaluate?
Well, do you evaluate people? I think is a big one. I mean, I don't see a lot of companies doing quarterly, semi-annual, annual reviews.
Well, I'm just talking about, we'll have some interesting stuff. I'm reading a book our guest wrote. And that's one of the things they talk about, anyway, should you evaluate people, which seemed like pretty obvious to me. They need some feedback, but I don't know. We'll see what he says. And then how do you use that evaluation? And then once you've evaluated somebody, and this is what's happening in 2 of my clients this week, really, is that person's got to go. And I'm not. So, do you try to change him? Do you try to work with him? Do you try, drag it out? The common feeling that the boss has that I wasn't fair. I didn't give him enough training. I didn't give him enough time. Not everybody has that, but a lot do. And they wind up keeping somebody around until it finally got to go. And that's what the 2 phone calls I got this morning are. And I'm anxious to see what happened. But
I mean, I think with evaluation, my opinion has always been that it needs to be evaluated from both sides. Like, you need to evaluate the employee, but the employee also needs to evaluate themselves.
Right.
And that, I think, inside of that, with the objective and the subjective, you have to do objective metrics, measuring their job. How many calls did you make today? How many jobs did you complete? How many bills were invoiced? What was dated to collect? What are the objective metrics for this role, right? Then you also need to have ratings. Let the person rate themselves. A scale of, and I do scales 1 to 3. 3 is exceeding expectations, 2 is meeting expectations, 1 is underperforming expectations. But you can do a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 5, whatever you want, but let them rate themselves on a scale and then ask them why they chose that rating. Then that opens the opportunity for you to give your subjective feedback, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you are doing the evaluation. That's how I approach it. Then the last thing that I'll say, you mentioned how do you fire or whatever it is. I think a couple questions I think about are, 1, if I could, would I hire this person again?
Right.
If you can't say, if you can't say yes to that question, you have to go. You have to let go. You have to.
Well, that's one of the places where it's really hard and I'm thinking a bunch of guys out there listening go, that's not hard for me. You're out of here. Well, I will say the majority, a big majority,
It's hard for me.
Don't feel that way. Yeah, they don't feel that way. And they let that, I didn't define it. And that's one thing we'll talk about with this man in the future. But how do you define the subjective standards? Because if you want to talk about fair, and I almost hate that word, but it's fair, the objective, because I told you have to do 50.
Yeah.
50 is a number starting on Monday, and by Friday at 5:30, they have to be 50 in the box or the bin. The stuff about being a team player and being polite, I mean, how do you define that, without getting too far in the weeds? And then sometimes you don't agree, and that's what's happening this morning. And I'm the boss, and you're not. And I think we talked about this, you're still doing it, you're gone.
I think that performance plans don't typically work. The only time I think they would work is if the performance plan is for you. Hey, I'm the owner and I didn't give you the resources. I didn't give you the training. I didn't give you the expectations at all. I need the performance plan to be doing those things more regularly, right?
Yeah.
That's the only case in which I think it can work. Otherwise, move on. And I think this goes back, we mentioned this a while back. Elon Musk talked about in a podcast with Lex Friedman about his AI Grok and how they were building it out. And Elon said, looking at the process, I always try to eliminate 10% more than necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
If you
So
you haven't been tight enough. Yeah.
So, imagine you have a crew or you have multiple crews inside your business. Let's say you have 7 crews and you're looking at how you service people and you really need 5 to actually do the job. That would be like removing 3 of them and going to 4 crews rather than 5 and seeing if you can make it work, because you can always add the crew back and 1 crew back. Same thing in this case. It's probably better to eliminate the job, right? And then have to go and hire again for it, right? Than it is to maybe, because I think that's the big concern with a lot of people. Well, how am I going to get the work done without this person? Like, they're not great. They're not someone I want to keep around, but I don't want to deal with the pain of having to operate without someone in place, right? Or the pain of having to go through the application process again, whatever it is. Well, go ahead and eliminate and see what happens, because you can always find something as a solution to add back.
Well, there'll be some listeners going, well, you can't always, it's hard to find guys, but people
Yeah.
find guys.
People find guys. And yeah, maybe you can be tactical and have the job open and hiring for it while the person's still there, so you're not left in shambles. But interesting. Well, it's been fun talking, Martin. I know that this is kind of a longer episode, but yeah, fun to discuss.
Well, we'd also love to have people bring up any issue that they're interested in. How would you? Nothing too absurd, because I can out absurd them.
Well, yeah, send topics, questions you have, issues you're dealing with. And also if there's AI instances that you really are interested in, we can do a demo, but just got to let us know.
Yep.
All right. Good talking to you,
Thank
Martin.
you, sir. You bet.
Okay. See you.
You made it to the end of the episode, but before you go, if you found yourself thinking about growing your construction business while listening today, I want to share something with you. It's called our 24 Things to Hiring and Training the Perfect Executive Assistant for Your Construction Business. And it's a free guide that we've created. It's not theory. It's what we actually use to help contractors hire the perfect executive assistant. And really, we help you find ways to delegate over 50% of your current workload and get back 20 hours of your time every single week. You didn't start your construction business to just be doing admin work, to be buried in paperwork and endless admin tasks. This is the guide that shows you exactly how to find and train someone who can actually take all that weight off of your shoulders. So this is a real actionable, great PDF that has templates and processes. It's really, really great. And I want you to check it out, even just to get your feedback and how we can make it even more valuable. But I know that you're gonna love it. The link is in the show notes. Please download it. We'd love to see how much of an impact it makes on you and your business. Thanks for listening to the full episode. Check out the guide. It's free. No reason to hesitate. No reason to wait. Download it now. And before you go, I just want to ask for your gracious subscription to our podcast. So if you have 2 seconds, it means the world to us. Just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or if you'd like our weekly newsletter delivered to your inbox whenever we release an episode, please subscribe in the show notes. Every week, we're talking about real strategies on how you can grow and build a profitable construction business that runs without you, so you can have less stress, more time, and more money. Click subscribe wherever you listen to the show, and thank you again for checking out the Cashflow Contractor. See you on the next episode.